The first time she walked into the cafe, I thought she was far too perfect to be real. The second time I realized she was dangerous. Dangerous because no one should look at a girl like me with eyes that soft, as if I were worth being seen. Boston, winter of 2010, smelled of coffee beans, wet asphalt, and dreams too heavy to carry. I was 22, broke, and half convinced that my life was nothing more than a shift schedule pinned on a greasy corkboard. She was 31, a doctor at Massachusetts General, a woman who probably had her name engraved somewhere on marble plaques I'd never dare touch. And yet, when her gaze caught mine that evening, something cracked open inside me. I wasn't prepared for her. The cafe was never quiet. The hiss of the espresso machine, the bell above the door, the scraping of chairs across Twilight was chaos stitched together by the scent of burnt coffee. I'd learned to hide in plain sight, a polite smile plastered across my face, never lingering too long on anyone. Until her. She came in wearing a wool coat the color of storm clouds, her stethoscope peeking from her bag like a secret she didn't mean to share. Her hair was damp, curling at the edges from the drizzle outside. But it was her eyes that pinned me. Not just brown. Darker. Rich like freshly brewed espresso, carrying the kind of exhaustion only years of chasing life and death could bring. She ordered a latte. Simple. No sugar. Her voice was steady, clipped, precise like someone who had spent too much time making split-second decisions. And yet, when I handed her the cup, her fingers brushed mine and lingered. Not by accident. "Thank you," she said. And it wasn't just for the coffee. I told myself not to imagine anything. I was just a waitress in a small cafe off Charles Street, working shifts to pay rent on an apartment with peeling paint. I didn't have the luxury of fantasies. But the universe, cruel as it was, didn't care what I told myself. She kept coming back. Once a week at first. Then twice. Then almost every evening just before closing. Always the same drink. Always the same look that slid under my skin and made me forget how to breathe. Her name was Dr. Evelyn Hart. It took her 3 visits to tell me that. The way she said it was almost reluctant, as if she hated the weight her title carried. Evelyn. Evelyn Hart. A name I would roll around in my mouth when I was alone, whispering it like a prayer. And me? I was nobody. Just Lila. The girl who wiped down tables and refilled sugar jars. So why the hell was she looking at me like I was somebody? The truth was I didn't trust her. Not at first. Women like her didn't notice women like me. Women like her got photographed in hospital newsletters, smiled with perfect teeth, and married men in tailored suits. Women like her weren't supposed to sit in dingy cafes and ask baristas about their favorite books. But Evelyn wasn't playing by the rules. "What are you reading these days?" she asked one night, tapping her perfectly manicured nails on the counter as if she had nowhere else to be. I laughed bitterly. "The backs of cereal boxes." She smiled, that smile, and tilted her head. "That's a shame. You look like someone who'd like Fitzgerald. Or maybe Salinger." No one had ever cared enough to guess what I liked. I hated that she saw through me so easily. The rumors started among my coworkers first. "She's into you," Jenna, the other waitress, whispered one night while we were sweeping. "Doctors don't come back to this dump unless they've got a reason. And it's not the coffee." I rolled my eyes, pretending it didn't matter. But my chest burned every time Evelyn appeared at the door. 'Cause Jenna was right. Doctors didn't haunt small cafes. Doctors didn't look at baristas the way Evelyn looked at me. And yet she did. It wasn't until the night of the blackout that everything shifted. Boston was swallowed in darkness after a storm tore through the city. The cafe was empty, save for the faint glow of emergency lights. I was stacking chairs when the door creaked open, and there she was, hair wet, cheeks flushed from the cold, her coat dripping onto the floor. "You shouldn't be here," I told her, heart racing. "I know," she said, voice low. "But I didn't want to be anywhere else." Silence stretched between us. Outside, rain battered the windows. Inside, her eyes found mine, and I felt like I was standing on the edge of something irreversible. I don't remember who moved first. Maybe it was me. Maybe it was her. But suddenly we were close, too close, her breath mingling with mine. "Lila," she whispered, my name trembling off her lips like it mattered. And then she kissed me. It wasn't the kind of kiss you see in movies, perfect and rehearsed. It was desperate, raw, tasting of rain and unspoken hunger. It was the kiss of someone who had spent too long pretending, finally breaking free. I should have pulled away. I should have remembered who she was and who I wasn't. But I didn't. I let her kiss me until my lips were bruised, until the storm outside felt like a reflection of the one unraveling in my chest. When we finally broke apart, she looked terrified. I shouldn't have done that, she said, stepping back, her voice trembling. But the way her eyes lingered told me she didn't regret it. Not really. And neither did I. The days that followed blurred into something unreal. She kept coming back, but now her visits carried a weight they hadn't before. We didn't speak of the kiss, but it pulsed between us like electricity, buzzing in every glance, every brush of fingers across the counter. I didn't tell anyone. Not Jenna. Not my landlord. Not my mother, who still called every Sunday to ask why I hadn't found a nice boy. This thing with Evelyn, it wasn't something I could explain. Because how do you explain being chosen by someone who could have chosen anyone? Still, the world has a cruel way of reminding you where you belong. It happened on a Tuesday. Evelyn came in dressed in scrubs, exhaustion painted across her face. She sat in her usual spot, staring at her untouched latte. Something in her eyes was broken. Rough day? I asked softly, setting a napkin on the table. Her lips parted as if she wanted to speak, but instead tears brimmed in her eyes. She looked away quickly, ashamed. I didn't know what to do, so I sat across from her, breaking the unspoken rule that baristas don't sit with customers. But she wasn't just a customer. Not anymore. She finally whispered, I lost someone today. A patient. And in that moment I realized something. For all her brilliance, all her strength, Evelyn Hart was human. Fragile. Hurting. Just like me. So I reached across the table, my hand covering hers. I'm sorry, I said. I'm so sorry. Her fingers tightened around mine, as if I were the only anchor she had left. And maybe I was. That night I walked her home. The city was alive with sirens and streetlights, but for once it felt like we were the only two people in the world. She invited me inside her apartment, a space far too polished for someone like me, but I didn't care. We sat on her couch, silence wrapping around us. Then, without a word, she leaned into me, her head resting on my shoulder. I thought my heart might burst, because for the first time in my life I felt chosen, wanted, loved, even if it was temporary. She warned me. This can't be easy, she said one night, her voice trembling in the darkness of her bedroom. My life is complicated. People expect things from me. I don't care. I whispered against her skin. I only want this. You. But the truth was I did care. Because deep down I knew what she meant. Evelyn Hart belonged to a world I could never touch. And sooner or later that world would come crashing down on us. And when it did, I wasn't sure if love would be enough. That was the beginning. The first spark. The first crack in the walls we had built around ourselves. Neither of us knew it then, but that winter of 2010 would change everything, our lives, our hearts, the way we understood love. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing in the world isn't losing someone. It's daring to let yourself be found. The morning after that night at her apartment, I woke up tangled in sheets that smelled like lavender and antiseptic. For a moment I forgot who I was. I wasn't Lila, the barista with calloused hands and unpaid bills. I was just a woman lying beside someone extraordinary, her arm draped over me as if I were something worth holding on to. But reality was cruel. By the time I blinked awake fully, Evelyn was already gone, her side of the bed cold. The apartment was silent, save for the hum of the refrigerator. On the kitchen counter sat a note in neat, elegant handwriting. Emergency shift. Coffee in the cupboard. Lock the door when you leave. E. It should have been enough. A small gesture, simple, practical. But the absence of her body next to mine felt like a warning. This is temporary. Don't get used to it. I stood in her kitchen, holding the note like it was some kind of love letter, and wondered if she'd written it in a hurry or if she'd hesitated before signing just the initial. Did she think of me at all during her day at the hospital? Or was I already a secret she regretted? At the cafe, Jenna didn't miss a thing. You look different, she said, squinting at me as I wiped down the counter. Like someone got lucky. Heat rushed to my cheeks. Shut up. Her grin widened. It's her, isn't it? The doctor. I knew it. I wanted to deny it. God, I wanted to. But the truth sat heavy in my chest. If anyone found out, it wouldn't just be gossip. It could ruin her. And maybe me too. So I forced a laugh, brushing Jenna off. You read too many romance novels. But inside, my pulse raced with the fear that maybe she was right. Maybe I was living in a story too fragile to last. The secrecy became part of the rhythm of us. Evelyn would come in late, sometimes after 12-hour shifts, her shoulders sagging, her eyes shadowed with exhaustion. I'd sneak glances at her from behind the counter, and when no one was looking, her hand would brush mine just long enough to make my knees weak. Sometimes she'd wait until closing, then walk me home through the cold Boston streets, her hand brushing mine but never fully taking it. The city wasn't ready for us. Neither was she. And yet, in the privacy of her apartment, we burned. Nights blurred into mornings, the line between friendship and something deeper dissolving until I couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. She traced the lines of my face with her fingertips, whispering things like, "You don't know how much I needed this." I'd answer with silence because if I spoke, I might have confessed too much. But the cracks came. They always do. Started with a phone call. I was at the cafe, sweeping crumbs into a dustpan, when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I answered without thinking. "Is this Lila?" A woman's voice, sharp and cold. "Yes," I said cautiously. "This is Dr. Hart's secretary. Evelyn asked me to tell you she won't be able to meet tonight." For a moment I couldn't breathe. Secretary? Why did she even know my name? Why was she calling me instead of Evelyn herself? I mumbled something like "thank you," and hung up, my hands trembling. The humiliation stung. If I mattered, wouldn't Evelyn have called me herself? That night I waited anyway, just in case. But she didn't come. The next time I saw her, I tried to be normal. I tried to act like nothing had changed, but my bitterness slipped through. "Busy night?" I asked, pouring her latte, my tone sharper than I intended. Her eyes flickered, catching the edge in my voice. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "It wasn't my choice." "Wasn't your choice to call? Or wasn't your choice to care?" The words tumbled out before I could stop them. I regretted them instantly. Her jaw tightened, and for the first time there was a wall between us. "You don't understand my world, Lila," she said, her voice low. "You think it's easy, but it's not. People watch me, judge me. One mistake and it all falls apart." I bit my lip, shame flooding me. She was right. I didn't understand. I was just a waitress. What did I know about saving lives, about the politics of a hospital where every move was scrutinized? But still, didn't I deserve more than being a secret? We didn't talk for a week. I threw myself into work, pretending not to notice the ache that gnawed at me every time the bell above the cafe door rang and it wasn't her. Nights felt endless, my tiny apartment colder than ever. I told myself it was better this way. Less complicated. Less dangerous. And then one night she showed up again. She looked wrecked. Pale. Tired. Her hands shook as she held her coffee untouched. "Evelyn," I whispered, stepping closer. She looked up at me, and in her eyes I saw something raw and broken. "I can't do this," she said. "I can't stay away from you." The words shattered me. Relief and fear tangled in my chest as she reached for my hand across the counter, not caring who saw. I didn't know if it was love or desperation that drove us back together that night. Maybe both. But I knew one thing. Whatever this was, it was bigger than either of us. The hospital gala was our undoing. I hadn't been invited, of course. It wasn't my world. But Evelyn asked me to meet her afterward, her voice hushed, urgent. I waited outside the hotel, shivering in my thin coat, while inside the city's elite clinked glasses and toasted to lives they didn't know how to live. And then I saw her. Evelyn, radiant in a navy gown, her hair swept up, diamonds glittering at her throat. She looked like she belonged on a magazine cover, not in the arms of a cafe waitress. But she wasn't alone. A man walked beside her, tall, handsome, his hand resting on the small of her back as if it had every right to be there. My stomach dropped. Later, when she finally found me in the shadows of the street, I couldn't hide the bitterness in my voice. Who was he? She flinched. A colleague. Just a colleague. Colleagues don't touch like that. Her silence was an answer I didn't want. We fought that night. God, we fought. You can't keep me hidden and then pretend nothing's wrong when I see you with someone else. I snapped, tears burning my eyes. And you can't expect me to throw away everything I've built just because you want me to shout us from the rooftops, she shot back, her voice breaking. For a moment I thought she would leave. That she'd walk away and never look back. But instead she pulled me into her arms, holding me so tightly it hurt. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. But I know I don't want to lose you. And in that messy, painful moment, I realized love wasn't about perfection. It was about choosing each other even when it was impossible. Still, the weight of the world pressed harder each day. Her colleagues whispered. My coworkers speculated. Boston wasn't kind to women like us in 2010, not in the open, not when reputations were at stake. Every look, every touch had to be measured, hidden, disguised. And yet, the more we hid, the more I craved to be seen. To walk down the street holding her hand. To sit in her hospital cafeteria without pretending I was just another visitor. But maybe that was the cruelest part of love, wanting more than someone can give. One night, in the quiet of her bedroom, I asked the question I'd been too afraid to ask. Where is this going, Evelyn? She froze. Her fingers stilled against my skin. I don't know, she admitted. I wish I did. It wasn't the answer I wanted. But it was the truth. And sometimes the truth hurts more than lies. That winter in Boston was the most beautiful and the most brutal of my life. We loved in the shadows, fought in whispers, and dreamed of a future that might never come. But deep down I knew one thing. I'd rather have broken pieces of Evelyn Hart than a whole life without her. Because sometimes love isn't about forever. It's about surviving the storm long enough to believe in the morning. The storm didn't come all at once. It crept in slowly, whispers, sidelong glances, things left unsaid. But by the time I realized how fragile our little world was, it was already unraveling. The first crack came from her family. I didn't know much about them. Evelyn rarely spoke of her parents, except in clipped tones that suggested history she didn't care to revisit. But one night I found out more than I wanted. We were at her apartment, eating takeout from white cartons, the glow of the city spilling through her window. Her phone rang, buzzing against the table. She sighed, glancing at the caller ID, then answered. Yes, Mother. Her voice shifted, colder, restrained. I tried not to listen, but every word carried across the quiet room. No, I won't be bringing anyone to the gala. Yes, I'm still working at Mass General. No, I don't need to be set up with anyone. Her jaw tightened, her free hand curling into a fist. Finally, she snapped, Stop trying to control my life, and hung up. The silence afterward was deafening. Family? I asked gently. Her eyes flickered to me, filled with a mixture of exhaustion and shame. They'll never understand. Not about you. Not about this. I wanted to tell her it didn't matter, that we didn't need their understanding. But the truth lodged heavy in my throat, because it did matter. Family could break you in ways strangers never could. The second crack came at the hospital. It started as gossip, the kind that slithers through sterile hallways and sticks to reputations like tar. Evelyn was late meeting me one evening, her face pale, her movements sharp with suppressed anger. What happened? I asked, touching her arm. They know, she whispered. Someone saw us. My stomach dropped. Who? A nurse, I think. I don't know. But now everyone's whispering. About me. About us. She pressed her hands to her temples. Do you know what this could do to me? To my career? Her words cut deeper than I wanted them to. We weren't just a secret anymore, we were a liability. I tried to stay calm, to steady her. We didn't do anything wrong. Her laugh was bitter. You think that matters? This is Boston. It's 2010. People don't forget. They don't forgive. I wanted to hold her, to tell her we'd be okay. But doubt not at me. Because she wasn't wrong. The pressure between us built like a storm cloud. Nights together became less frequent. She canceled plans more often, sometimes with excuses, sometimes with silence. When we were together, it was like clinging to something slipping away, desperate and fragile. One night, lying in her bed, I whispered, Are you ashamed of me? Her whole body went still. No, she said finally, her voice trembling. Never of you. Only of how much I need you. But the hesitation before her answer spoke louder than the words. It was a Saturday night when everything finally broke. We had planned to meet after her shift, But hours passed and she didn't come. I sat in the cafe long after closing, staring at the clock, until the bell above the door jingled and she stumbled in. Her hair was a mess, her coat hanging loose, her face drawn tight with exhaustion. "I can't do this anymore," she said without preamble. The words sliced through me like glass. "What? This? Us?" She pressed a hand to her chest, as if steadying her own heart. "I can't keep sneaking around. I can't keep risking everything. It's tearing me apart." Tears burned my eyes. "So what? You're just going to walk away?" Her voice cracked. "I have to." And just like that, the world collapsed. I don't remember leaving the cafe that night. I only remember the cold air biting at my face, the way my hands shook as I unlocked the door to my empty apartment. The days that followed were a blur. Work, sleep, cry, repeat. Every corner of the cafe reminded me of her, the seat by the window, the cup she always used, the sound of her laugh. Even the smell of coffee became unbearable. Jenna noticed, of course. She didn't push, just gave me quiet looks filled with pity I couldn't stand. "You deserve better," she said once. But I didn't want better. I wanted her. Weeks passed. Winter melted into the first hints of spring. I told myself I was healing, but the truth was I was only surviving. Then one night there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, Evelyn stood there. She looked different, thawed, fragile, her eyes red as if she hadn't slept in days. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. My chest ached, torn between anger and longing. "Why are you here?" "Because I can't breathe without you." Her words broke me. Against every ounce of reason, I stepped aside and let her in. We didn't speak much that night. Words were too heavy, too sharp. Instead, we sat on my bed, our fingers tangled, our bodies pressed close as if trying to fuse the broken pieces back together. "I tried to forget you," she admitted. "I buried myself in work, in family obligations, in anything that wasn't you. But nothing worked. You're in my head, Lila. You're in my blood." Tears slid down my cheeks. "Then why did you leave?" "Because I'm a coward," she whispered. And for the first time I believed her. But love built on fear is a fragile thing. We tried again, but the cracks remained. Every moment together was shadowed by the fear of discovery, of loss, of the inevitable breaking. She wanted me, but she also wanted the life she'd built, the respect, the stability, the family approval. And I was the opposite of all those things. One night, after making love in the dim light of her apartment, I asked softly, "Do you see a future with me?" Her silence was the loudest answer of all. The final breaking point came in May. She was supposed to meet me at the cafe after her shift. I waited, nerves tangled in my chest, rehearsing what I'd say. I wanted to ask her to choose. To finally stop living in between. But instead of Evelyn, it was her secretary who walked in. A young woman in a crisp suit, eyes cold and professional. She handed me a folded envelope. Inside was a letter, written in Evelyn's neat handwriting. "Lila, you are the most beautiful thing that has ever happened to me. But I can't do this anymore. I can't keep breaking both of us. Please don't hate me. Please try to understand." The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. And just like that, she was gone. Summer in Boston was cruel that year. Heat pressed against the city, and life went on without her. The cafe filled with tourists, couples holding hands, laughter that felt like a knife. I moved through it all like a ghost, smiling when I had to, crying when I couldn't hold it back anymore. Everyone told me time would heal. But time didn't erase her name from my lips, or her scent from my memory, or the way my heart still ached every time I passed the hospital where she worked. I thought I'd never see her again. But fate has a way of circling back when you least expect it. The first time I saw her again, it was an accident. It was late August, the kind of humid Boston night where the air clung to your skin. The cafe was nearly empty. Just me and a couple of stragglers waiting for their drinks. I was wiping down the counter when the bell above the door rang. And there she was. Dr. Evelyn Hart. She looked the same and yet not the same. The months had carved shadows under her eyes, softened the strength of her posture. She seemed smaller, fragile in a way I'd never seen before. Her gaze swept the cafe, landed on me and froze. For a heartbeat, we just stared at each other. The world fell silent. Finally, she stepped forward. "Hi," she said, her voice quiet, almost unsure. It wasn't the confident, untouchable doctor I'd known. It was just Evelyn. I wanted to hate her. I wanted to throw her letter in her face, demand why she'd chosen fear over me, why she'd shattered me so completely. But instead all I managed was, "What are you doing here?" Her lips trembled into a sad smile. I couldn't stay away any longer. Anger and longing tangled inside me, pulling me in two directions. "You made your choice," I snapped. "You don't get to just come back." Her eyes glistened. "I know. And I regret it every single day." The ache in my chest nearly dropped me to my knees. She came back again the next night. And the next. Always sitting at the same corner table. Always ordering the same latte she barely touched. I tried to ignore her. God, I tried. But every time I looked up, her eyes were on me, pleading, apologizing, waiting. Finally, on the fourth night, I broke. "Why are you doing this?" I demanded, slamming a cup down on her table. She flinched but didn't look away. "Because I miss you. Because I can't undo what I did. But I can't live without you either." Tears threatened to spill, but I swallowed them back. "You don't get to want me when it's convenient, Evelyn. You don't get to choose me only in the shadows." Her hand trembled as it reached across the table. "Then let me choose you in the light. We didn't fix things overnight. Love isn't a switch you can flip. It's a wound that has to be cleaned before it can heal." But slowly, piece by fragile piece, we began again. She showed up, not just in the cafe but in my life. Helping me carry groceries, walking me home after late shifts, leaving little notes tucked under my door, notes that weren't apologies anymore, but promises. One read, "I want to hold your hand in daylight." Another, "I told my mother about you today. She didn't understand, but I don't care anymore." For the first time, she wasn't running. The turning point came one crisp October afternoon. She showed up at the cafe, her hair loose around her shoulders, a nervous energy buzzing off her. She waited until I was off shift, then walked me through the common, the leaves crunching beneath our feet. Finally she stopped, turned to me, and took both my hands. "I told my hospital board about us," she said. My stomach dropped. "What? Why?" "Because I'm tired of living a lie." She cut in, her eyes fierce with conviction. "I don't care about whispers or reputations anymore. I care about you. And if they can't respect that, then maybe I'm working in the wrong place." Shock rippled through me. This was the woman who had once chosen fear over love, who had once walked away because the world demanded it. Now she was standing here, choosing me fully, unapologetically. Tears blurred my vision. "Are you sure?" I whispered. Her smile trembled, but her grip on my hands was steady. "I've never been more sure of anything." And right there, beneath the golden leaves of Boston in autumn, she kissed me. Not in secret, not in shadows, out in the open where anyone could see. And I kissed her back. The months that followed weren't perfect. People still whispered. My coworkers stared. Her colleagues judged. Her family stayed distant. But none of it mattered the way it used to. Because for the first time we weren't hiding. We went to bookstores together. We ate brunch on Sundays. She held my hand as we walked through the city, her fingers laced tightly with mine as if daring the world to pull us apart again. And the more we stopped hiding, the lighter it felt. Love wasn't a burden anymore. It was a freedom. One night in December, nearly a year since she first walked into the cafe, we sat together in her apartment, the city lights flickering outside. She rested her head on my shoulder, her hand warm in mine. "Do you ever wonder," she whispered, "why you? Out of everyone, why did I choose you?" I laughed softly, shaking my head. "Every damn day." She lifted her head, her eyes locking with mine. "Because you see me. Not the doctor, not the title, not the expectations. Just me. And that's all I've ever wanted." My chest ached with the weight of it, the beauty of it. I cupped her face, kissed her softly, and whispered, "Then don't ever let me go." Her smile was steady, sure. "Never." Boston 2010 was still the same city it had always been. The winters were brutal. The summers sticky. The cafe was still noisy, still full of burnt coffee smells and the scrape of chairs. But everything had changed. Because now when she walked through the door, she didn't sit in the shadows anymore. She came straight to me, kissed me in front of everyone, and didn't care who saw. And every time she did, I thought back to the girl I'd been, the waitress who thought she was nobody, who thought women like Evelyn Hart didn't see women like her. And I smiled. Because she did. She always did. In the end, it wasn't about titles or careers or the expectations of the world. It was about two women, flawed and frightened, who found each other in a small cafe on a rainy night and chose to keep finding each other, again and again, no matter the cost. Because love isn't about perfection. It's about choosing each other, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. And that's how I learned the truth. I wasn't just a cafe waitress. I was the woman Evelyn Hart loved. And that was enough. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.